Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Jug Show. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. We didn't really have any comics that just that excite me this particular week, even with Fantastic Four fanfare. That was kind of cool, and I think there might be rumors of it leading to more stories, especially with the Hickman's one when it came to the Fantastic Four and all those horror motifs, because we know there's another Marvel Zombies. I'm not sure if event. Let's go with story. We'll call it Marvel Zombies story. So I think that was actually a catalyst for what's coming there. But the fact is that just didn't really pique my interest as much. So, just to have this kind of discussion. There were some interesting things, and I might get onto that later, but that's not exactly what I want to do for this particular Jug Show. What I want to do for this particular one is kind of talk about the particular series that I have been interested in that's ending this week. Then it's going to get rebooted next month, but I still really want to talk about it. And that is the Fantastic Four, written by Ryan North. The reason why I want to talk about the whole run as a whole is because the fact is, when I started, we were already close to the end. Like, we were already getting into One World Under Doom, so the fact is, I haven't spoken about the whole thing yet. So I want to get started on this by actually talking about the run and how I view it as a whole, and why I think it would actually be good for Marvel to really look at what Ryan has done compared to what they've actually done in the past. So I want to take this back to the very beginning. I want to talk about what it was like when I actually heard that Ryan North was taking over. So Slot has halfway through his Reckoning War event, and honestly, when it came to Slot, it actually felt like his run was dragging on. I personally think that if Slot wrapped up his run about halfway through, maybe right after Empire, or maybe just kept going a little bit after Empire, it would actually be more fondly remembered. But it honestly felt like at that point he was more or less trying to come up with another idea, which was very unfortunate because even though that run might be looked on less favorably, he actually did have a couple of good ideas. He had some very good moments. I think the problem was he didn't work on those because some of them were interesting. Franklin losing his powers, and they were happening progressively, not just an instant, but he never came up with a reason why it was happening. I don't understand. Like, that would definitely hurt the run. He had Ben adopt the kids, and he gave them a couple of moments, but he never really gave them full set issues to really explore these kids. And so many other things. So then they announced that he was leaving, and they came up with the whole that compass announcement. That really felt very like, why? And so the fun part, though, was the fact that me and a lot of people that I talked to online, we were coming up with all these fun theories and all that, just coming up with ridiculous ideas. And eventually they announced that it was Ryan. And at that point, Ryan hadn't exactly made his name at Marvel at that point. He was just known for Squirrel Girl. So everyone, including myself, was like, who? And the excitement kind of dropped off a little bit. Even from me, I won't lie, I wasn't really expecting much from Ryan, especially when the description started to come out. It did make me a bit more excited, but it also made me like, he was piquing my interest, but the excitement was kind of steady because he was talking about making it more episodic, talking about like how would be in Star Trek, that type of scenario. And it wasn't the first issue that did it for me. That one was cheating. I knew I couldn't base my opinion on the run of the first issue because the fact is I knew I was going to love that issue. For starters, it's Ben. Ben is my favorite character of the Fantastic Four and Marvel in general. And he did something that I actually love. It's a classic sci-fi trope, but one I don't think is used often enough. the idea of using a time loop as a way to express in a way being unable to let go emotionally of something, I love that to death. I think it's one of the greatest sci-fi storytelling mechanics in any fiction. It's fantastic. It stems from an episode of a show called Stargate, where it was the two characters that got stuck in the time loop. They're not the more like, you have four characters. Two of them are more highly intelligent in physics and archaeology. The other two are more military combatants, and they got their own levels of intelligence, but it's not this stuff. And they go the ones that get caught in a time loop. It was very funny because they start doing silly things because they could get away with it. But when we come to the end, it's very emotional. And even though they studied to turn it off themselves, the device that caused the time loop off themselves, they ended up, instead of turning it off, they connected with the man that was doing it all because of why he was doing it. He was lost his wife, and they created a connection because one of the characters had lost his son, and through that connection, they formed a bit of a bond and helped him let go of his wife. And that was very similar to how the person in that was causing the time loops in Ben's in the first issue, and how he learned to let go of the woman that broke up with him, because you have to let go in these situations. It was over, and honestly, he didn't even really do the relationship. This is something that's actually very dangerous and very toxic, and it's not like a full-on toxic relationship or anything. It's just that it's the inability to let go, and you're not even fighting for a good relationship. You just don't want to make it feel like you failed at a relationship. So using that kind of storytelling, he got me on that first issue. It was the second and the third issue that really made me more and more excited, especially when you start noticing him putting in the scientific theories. It was around the third issue he actually started doing that. Like in the second issue, he does the fun stuff. He shows a very good relationship with Sue and Reed, which was very positive, because sometimes when it comes to some writers, they like to create more of a sense of tension between the two. Say that how Reed does things is a problem, or Sue might be. I don't even want to talk about that. But what we know about Ryan is that he actually had a consultant of somebody with autism. And Reed's been autistically coded for a long time, and even though he hasn't outright said it yet, Ryan is writing Reed autistically, which means he's also taking into consideration what it's like to be in a relationship with someone with autism, and what people like Sue would have to do, the level of patience they'd have to have, and the level of understanding they'd have to have, building up her agency as a character, as well as showing more empathy towards Reed as a character. And then in the third issue, just making it did seem just more like a bit of fun, but it did actually add a bit to Johnny's character being a unionizer. He's pro-union, as well as showing his intelligence of breeding a hurricane. He took down a hurricane. So this is when Ryan really started to impress. Even though at this point in time you still didn't know what happened with why there was a massive crater in New York, but you were really starting to understand exactly where he was going with this particular series, and we kept seeing it time and time again. It's not a series with a grand scheme like we've seen with so many other comic series. And sometimes that can be a bit, it can be a bit off-putting. But in this case, it actually really helps. For starters, it means it's a very new reader-friendly book. And I think that's actually what the Fantastic Four really needed, because I was a new reader when Slot's run started, and while I could get into it, it also was like it felt like you had to play catch up a lot, because he was coming off Secret Wars. So I'm seeing these things. I'm thinking, what happened? So Reed and Valeria and Franklin, the teenagers. What's going on? I don't know, but that's not the case with Ryan. He does it bit by bit. And It really does feel. See, Ryan, I think, is what we really needed after the Secret Wars hiatus. With that point in time, there are a lot of people that where the Fantastic Four would probably be falling out. But the way Ryan does the writing, he reasserts each individual character. The book is very character driven. And that's very much what we really needed, because it helps us understand these characters. And he does it in such brilliant ways, and not only does it not insult the characters, but he brings up aspects that I think have actually flown right over the head of so many previous writers. One of my biggest examples of that is Ben. When it comes to Ben, a lot of times he's treated very simply. He's the big guy, he's the pilot, and he's the emotional character. Like, he's the one that's been through the most, so he usually gets the main focus. And that can actually end up being rather frustrating. Even though Ben is my favorite, it's him being written the same way again and again. He hates the way he looks, his tough history on Yancey Street. And the fact is, there's a little bit more to him. Especially what irks me is when they treat him, because he's the big guy, he's the big rocky dude, he's the guy that throws the punches. They treat him like he's very empty-headed. But that is just not true. So when Ryan did the issue, I think it was about issue 9, where Ben is falling through the hole. We got the new dog coming in, Princess. And Ryan is voicing through Ben how he would react to this situation as he would as a test pilot, because test pilots are incredibly intelligent. The things they have to know to work the brand new airplanes that cost millions of dollars, they wouldn't let just anyone in. He's studied it, because treating him as an idiot is a massive disservice to his story. He came up from the streets of New York, studied hard, worked hard to get to where he managed to get to. So treating him like an idiot is a massive disservice to Ben. But Ryan finally treated him as the genius. He's an intelligent individual. He knows about barometric pressure. He knows about engineering. He can do all these things that I can't even figure out how to do. I wouldn't know how to do. So that moment where he's actually reading how fast down they're going, even talking about, here's the thing, and it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, when superheroes with super strength pick up buildings, and they're staying in a whole piece, but the fact is, that's not how it works, because they're essentially a massive force of weight on a small base. They would crush under themselves. They can't build things like that. So the fact that Ben brings up that holding the building, it would crumble, because that's not how physics works. That's one of the best parts about Ryan. He brings in actual science. Because it's true, a lot of times you can easily say, come on, it's a comic book, it's for entertainment. But sometimes those comic book logic can get very annoying. And Ryan is actually tackling that, and it's great. I love it. Another part that he gets, like I said, it's very character driven. It's not character driven is an understatement. It's very focused on the characters, and it's reasserting who they are. And this is very good for new readers, and it's definitely very good for future writers, because if you really look at the stories of the Fantastic Four, a lot of the stories end up being basically the same. Like, we focus a lot on emotional Ben. We focus on Reed being guilty, Sue maybe being powerful, or maybe worrying about something, and Johnny having a meltdown in the background. It's usually how it goes. Not many writers have actually diverged from that. They've done different things in the story, but when it came to the characters, it's usually the same thing. And it feels like they do it because they don't understand exactly who these characters are. They don't want to. They're not really recognizing a lot of their growth. So Ryan really reasserting who these characters are, who they would be, and how they would react in many situations is a very good thing, especially for Alicia. And because one of Slot's better decisions was marrying Ben and Alicia, because he removed an annoying on again, off again relationship and he really, and then Ryan came in and really made Alicia more a member of the family and really started building on who Alicia is, how she sees the world, how she can benefit the family, and even use the fact that Alicia is part of it as another way to show a romantic moment between Reed and Sue with that whole Braille moment in issue 17. So the thing what Ryan is doing, he's very human. He's really getting the human aspects of not just these characters, not just of the Fantastic Four, but even the kids and even some surrounding characters. And it's very good to see, and it's very uplifting. This is one of the reasons why I think these books are revolutionary and would be very good for future issues. But what I'm worried about is what comes next. Because I've seen very little evidence of writers taking seriously what Ryan is actually doing and what he's trying to set up and what he's really giving them. If you want an example, it's easy. You got The Thing that's coming out, the new Thing miniseries. That's heavily it's basically we're going back to the past again, in this previous setting before what we're going in my current comic books, and it's pretty much a Ben punch it up. It's pretty much Ben being emotional about his history again, when we have this whole new setup for Ben. The fact that he's a parent now. He's a parent to a Skrull and a Kree who aren't native to Earth, and as well as because their species has attacked the planet, they would definitely be going through things that he needs to learn and understand. But they're not going to go that direction. Even though that Ryan has even set it up, showing that Nikki is very insecure about her environment, as well as Ben learning exactly what it means to really be as different as he is, and really accepting of it. And then you even got Marvel Fanfare, and that's just bringing back all these old writers, and they're doing almost the exact same thing again. So even though that what Ryan's doing is very new and very beneficial to the future of the characters, it really feels like what he's doing isn't being taken advantage of. And it makes me worry for whenever he actually decides to finish up, because we don't know how long his next the reboot is actually going to last for. I do hope it lasts for a while, but I also think that the Fantastic Four definitely deserves some more spin-off books, some other books that they're connected to, rather than just putting all this heap on Ryan. Especially with the kids and how they're actually now, because like I said, Ryan is very reinforcing who the kids are, the decisions they're making, their story. And so the fact they don't have their own book yet is actually a little bit on the frustrating side. So I hope that's coming very soon, especially with what he's doing with Valeria now, how she's really putting forward these new ideas. Franklin trying to learn, like really learning how to be a person, really trying to take in all this information around him, and just what Joe and Nikki are going through, just being as different as they are. I mean, the fact is, they're very different kids living in Arizona. The fact is, that's with it being very heavily in the south of America, of the US, there's probably a lot of people that wouldn't want aliens that are of a species that has attacked the planet on multiple occasions near their kids. So there's a lot of heavy stuff that can be done there. So this is where I want to talk about this part as well. Honestly, I want to bring up the top 3 writers that I would like to see handle the Fantastic Four if Ryan when Ryan decides to leave. Let's start. You know what? This is in no particular order. The one that's been on my head a lot lately has been Murewa Ayodele. Now, I know you guys probably think it's because I'm enjoying the Storm book, and the fact is, I am. The reason why I'm enjoying it is because he has a very human element to Storm and to his story. Because the fact is, previous to this, in the Krakoan era, this was not what Storm was like. She was handling every situation with grace and power, and it really wasn't phasing her at all. Then Murewa comes along, and he kind of ends that. And he's really writing as though, like what she has taken, she's reacting to it, and she's reacting in very human fashion. In fact, I've seen people complain about the fact he doesn't use a lot of out thoughts. He doesn't use a lot of thought bubbles. He doesn't show what the characters are thinking. But the fact is, I think that's actually a very good trick, because when a character goes through what Storm is going through, they're not always going to be vocal about it. So the idea of trying to learn what could be going through a person's head is actually very, very smart for this type of particular book. And with how human he's writing Storm, I would really love to see what he would do with the Fantastic Four. Because it's not just this one; it's also his I Am Iron Man book. That was a very good and emotional book, and really broke Tony out of the Iron Man books out of a cycle of what frankly has started up again, with Tony continuously just losing his company, getting battered around, having to go in a garage or something again. That's happened. That's been the last 4 runs. God, I hope it's 4. I don't think it's 4. So I think Murewa would be able to write a very good book. I think he would definitely be able to get a more human side of it, and he would definitely be able to understand the idea of them, how they would react to being different people, and in a world of especially in this type of world. And one of the things I actually really also do like is with this FBI, and how the FBI and Storm are what they are. These, like, the aliens, they got superhumans, and it feels like they're catching up to the rest of the world. That would be a very good thing to see as an antagonist to the Fantastic Four, especially given the fact that on multiple occasions the Fantastic Four have humiliated the government. So that would be actually very good. He's a very human writer, and he can do very good grand cosmic themes, as we're seeing as well. So yeah, Murewa is definitely one of my top 3. Another one is Eve Ewing. I know people will probably be thinking Al Ewing, but honestly, I'm not very interested in what he would write. I'm more interested in what Eve would do, because, like I said, I feel like when it comes to the Fantastic Four, you have to have an understanding of humanity. What these characters would go through, how they would react, how they would connect with people. That's a very important part. I think one of the fallings of some of the more less enjoyable runs is the fact that sometimes the writer doesn't have them connect very well. Like, they probably might just be constantly angry at each other. They might do something. They think it's easier to jeopardize the relationship to create drama. All those kinds of things. But Eve Ewing, she's actually very good at writing inter-character relationships, as well as even a sense of community between a character and their surroundings. The one I want to bring up about that is Eve's Black Panther. Her Black Panther was an absolutely fantastic book, and the way she built, I cannot remember off the top of my head, but the way she built this area of Wakanda and helped create a connection between this part of the city, as well as T'Challa and his new friend Besa. I hope that's how it's pronounced. Besa. It's got. I look. If I'm not getting it right, I hope I am. But if I'm not, I hope somebody can correct me in the comments. And how they developed that, I think that would also be good, seeing as how the fact that the Fantastic Four of New York, especially when it comes to Ben, even developing connections between the city and Sue, Johnny, maybe even Reed, or even something bigger than that. Maybe even focusing on the kids, trying to build a connection of community, or finding their own community and building connections. Because, like I said, Eve's greatest strength is building a connection with the characters. We're seeing that in Exceptional. And also, it's not always a perfect connection. When it came to in Exceptional, one of the good things I'm glad to see is the fact that she's not writing this relationship between Kitty and Emma as something that would be absolutely perfect, because that's what we were getting in the Cohen era under Jerry Duggan and Steve Orlando. Their relationship was as though none of the scars that have happened between them ever existed, and that doesn't happen. This is something I really don't think a lot of writers understand, that scars that form between people, they never go away. So that sense of animosity and anger, that's never always going to go away. It's going to lessen. You're going to be able to handle it, but it's not going to go away. So the fact that Eve is actually accepting of that and very good at writing it is something that's very positive. It feels like she understands people better than most writers. She cares about these characters actually acting like humans, like how people would react. She thinks to herself, how would this person genuinely react to this? Another reason why I think Eve is a very good choice is because if you look at the main line of the Fantastic Four, we have never had a woman writer on the main line. And I think that is a big problem that needs to be changed immediately. That needs to be changed, absolutely. Because the fact is, you can't look at the fact that we've had a lot of the same, like people that look the same and getting very similar stories, and you can't look at that and think if it's a coincidence. Especially because one of the more, not revolutionary, but definitely a standout issue was written by, I think it's probably fair to say, the first African American writer for the Fantastic Four in Dwayne McDuffie. May he rest in peace. His run was a lot of fun. It was very well written and very. Honestly, I just want to say cute. It was cute. The things he was doing, the characters were also playful and just alive, and it was brilliant. So yeah, Eve Ewing. I think she would make a great writer for the Fantastic Four. Number 3, that would have to be. Number 3 is a bit also on the obvious side. It's kind of why I left him till last, and that would have to be Chip Zdarsky. It feels like Chip Zdarsky has been poised to write the Fantastic Four for a while now, especially because he was the one that wrote the 2-in-1 saga for focusing on Johnny and Ben, for during the time when the Fantastic Four were on a hiatus, during the time after Secret Wars, and Reed and Sue, they were gone, the kids were growing up. So it really felt like he was actually going to be the writer when they came back before it went to slot. And he's even done a few other things. He did the 4X series, and the fact is, you can't help but think that story went in it, like it was supposed to lead to other things, other bigger things. And I don't just, when it came to the slot retcon of Franklin Richards, I don't just blame that, because I can't help but think that during the Krakoan era, a lot of writers could have even taken that retcon and shown the same problem that I think he was trying to do, or even just come up with a particular story of it. I think, a lot went wrong with that, and honestly, it's still driving me nuts to this day. But Chip Zdarsky does actually have an understanding of the relationship of the family, as we've seen with 2-in-1, and he does have some good ideas that I've been very curious about. One of the characters that he came up with, I would be very excited to see again, because he did mention her in X4, was Dr. Rachna Kaur, who's a superhuman geneticist, I think it was. But she's a very fascinating character, especially of her understanding of superhuman abilities. Because the way she was talking about them, you usually only get that kind of discussion really when it's more of it in X-Men side of things, where they're like really discussing heavily about the X gene and what these particular ones do and mean. Like, you get more of those conversations in X-Men rather than the other ones. I find that rather unfortunate too. Like, I feel like a lot of themes that you get in the X-Men really should be more spread out. But yeah, anyway, point going on. Chip is also the one that came up with the idea of the fact. Oh, I'm sorry. He also is the one that came up with the idea of the separation of the family leads to them weakening, them losing their powers that we're currently seeing in One World Under Doom and in the Fantastic Four. So he's definitely got a lot of good ideas that are worth working off, especially also maybe even continue a little bit of the X4 story. Maybe the idea of the God particle, maybe even some of the idea, maybe the friendship between Kitty and Franklin, maybe even an argument about what could happen between like what happened with Reed, Magneto, and Charles. So the idea of having Chip Zdarsky writing the main line, especially with a lot of ideas and a lot of things he clearly wants to do, would actually be fairly exciting. It feels like we're finally getting the story told that we were supposed to be told in 2018. And so I really, especially also because something I've always really wanted to see was a continuation of the new Council of Reeds he came up with, which were more, these guys were more mellow. They were very accepting of their family. Essentially, it was the Council of Happy Reeds, fulfilled Reeds. Literally dad bod Reed we got here. I love this, and I was so bummed that they actually didn't see more of this. So yeah, definitely Chip Zdarsky. So yeah, Murewa Ayodele, especially because of the way he can humanize concepts and even create some of the more bigger and powerful things. Hell, lately I've been racking my brain over Haddad and how he's probably even got a few similarities to Hyperstorm lately, and how cool it would be to see Murewa tackle Hyperstorm. He's got a Braxis, man. Hyperstorm. Oi. Eve Ewing, easily one of the most down-to-earth writers I have ever had the privilege of reading. Her work is absolutely fantastic, so why wouldn't I want her writing my favorite team? At the very least, especially because I've noticed she's very good at writing younger characters, maybe a book focusing on the kids. Especially as they're coming up. It would be I think she would be perfect to write a book that is solely based on the Fantastic Four kids. And Chip Zdarsky, we finally get the story that this poor guy has been itching to tell for yonkers now. And the one thing I hope, and one thing I would believe, is that these three would actually definitely use a lot of the concepts, a lot of the things that have been based off Ryan's run. I don't think they would be doing like a lot of the heavy scientific theory. They could. I don't know. I don't know their degrees. But the scientific theories and a lot of the interconnections is something that really is what's making this run very special, very unique. The idea of the scientific center of the Marvel franchise being written by an actual scientist, a man that studied computer science amongst other things, is actually a lot of fun. It's very good, and you also learn things. It's literally like when you're a kid, and I was watching a show called Backyard Science. I don't know if they had that anywhere else, and you actually learn, you pick things up, and then you go to school the next day, and you realize the things they're teaching you. You also learned on Backyard Science. I just had a couple of chats earlier today about the TV show Cyber Chase, and how some of that actually put some of the math stuff in my head, and I was ready for it when I was in math class back in primary school. And that was great. That's one of the fun parts. You're actually learning something. Like, I didn't know the OMG particle was a thing. I didn't know the China brain theory was a thing. I didn't know four-dimensional things were a thing. Oh wait, no, I kind of knew of it. I just didn't know what the hell it meant. And I'm okay with that. I'm a graphic designer. I don't need to know these things. Ryan has definitely created a very impactful and a very special run of the Fantastic Four. And he's even bringing a sense of charm, a sense of childlike joy to it, especially because he has dinosaurs in it. Ryan was definitely well known for the whole thing with... This is the shocking part about Ryan. He's fun and goofy in a lot of the books, so when he actually goes very serious, like in several moments in his Fantastic Four, or my personal favorite of Secret Invasion, it's incredible. He goes so deep and dark, and it's so real. He's a fantastic writer, and I kick myself every day when I thought that I just didn't think that he was actually going to pull it off. I was just I was just disappointed that it was Ryan that got chosen to write the book, and then I'm just like, I regret my decision. I regret ever saying anything bad about him. He's a fantastic writer. And I even when he leaves Fantastic Four, which I hope isn't for a while, I hope he continues on writing for Marvel and some of my other favorite characters. Maybe some stuff in Spider-Man could be fun, or maybe no, he finally gets that Iron Man run he should actually have gotten. Because if you read Secret Invasion, he's a great, great, great Iron Man writer. I love his stuff, and where are Tony's Scroll kids? Where's Kieran? That was a great aspect of it. How come we've had like 2, 3 writers on Iron Man, and none of them have used that? So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about following writers because it doesn't feel like Marvel's actually giving me any reason to be confident in who comes next because they keep rehashing same stories. There are a lot of new things we could do, especially with Reed starting to understand the ideas of magic, Susan and her archaeological endeavors, Johnny finally probably focusing more of him as an engineer. Hell, even if we get Chip Zdarsky, maybe he might do a race car driver again. That opening page is just so good. And just Ben being a dad. We have to remember that Ben didn't have a good childhood growing up, and he is raising kids that are adopted, and that presents its own sense of challenges. So I think that would be a very good thing to focus on. Whole new things and whole new avenues to focus on. So this has been a great run. And I'm glad that it's a reboot. It's not a full-on ending. I'm looking forward to the next run. I'm looking forward to the next issue coming out this week. And it's definitely fun that it's actually narrated by Herbie. That one definitely feels like because they're preparing you for the upcoming MCU Fantastic Four movie. At the same time, it's just fun. I'm very excited to see Humberto Ramos on the Fantastic Four. He actually recently did a stint doing a lot of Johnny and Ben in The Spectacular Spider-Man, which was also a fantastic book. I love that to death. That one hurts that that's over, but I'm so glad the writer actually did a lot of things I was hoping for, especially with Kurt Connors. Oh, I was so nervous about that. Oh, go Guggenheim. Go Guggenheim. So I hope we get at least another 20 issues for the reboot, and I hope it also leads to other writers coming up with some more stories about the Fantastic Four. Some spin-off titles, maybe one of the characters go off. We have a substitute characters again. I actually love when they do substitute characters. Sue getting some more attention, like her own arc and story, something that's not centered around Reed's like it usually is. Ben focusing on the kids getting their own stories. The fact that these characters have been around for 60 years and it still feels like they haven't reached their full potential, the stories that we could get still haven't all fully be told. It's both incredible and a little bit frustrating because we know where all those stories can come from. So I hope those stories keep coming. I hope who's comes next is definitely one of my top 3. And I just hope to the end of hopes that what comes next, especially even after the reboot or even during the reboot, is just going to be fantastic. It's going to be fun. I hope it's going to be fun. I hope I don't get bored of it or just even, getting the comic book reader frustration. So I hope you guys are like me. I hope you guys are enjoying the Fantastic Four. I'm hoping you guys are also enjoying what's going to come next with the reboot. I hope you guys are going to enjoy the movie. I hope you guys are going to enjoy, hopefully, comics that come from the movie. And I hope you guys also had a good time hanging here talking comics. I'll see you guys later.